instruction. Fantastic book. I just scroll through the verses. It's just 11 verses, but very profound instructions. Helps us really elevate ourselves into the path of consciousness. The instructions are very deep. You know, the more we will have is a little different from the Bhagavad Gita classes because it's just 11 verses. There are nice, amazing purports that Srila Prabhupada has given us. And we would want to use this to more discuss them in detail to understand and make sure that we know what the instructions are and how we are going to be implementing. Right? So the model we would follow is we would look at the verse, the translation obviously, but we'll read the purport here together. And as we go reading the purport, we're going to take pauses in between for us to discuss and make sure we have understood. Each purport that Srila Prabhupada has given for each of these 11 texts is super powerful, and I think every word of that is important. There's no point of summarizing that. Right? You good? Okay. First, go with the verse 1. Everybody ready?
Yes.
Vacho vekam manasa kodha vekam jiva vekam sa prastu vekam eta vekam yo vishaheta dhiraha sarvam imam prithvim sa. A sober person controls the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urge of the tongue, belly, and genitals is forced to make disciples all over the world. Very interesting, right? The very first verse itself is talking about becoming a guru and having disciples all over the world. But that sets up the tone. The instruction for us very clearly is about qualifying ourselves to be coming to a point where we are ourselves very strongly still in Krishna consciousness and are able to assist others. Both being an important aspect about practicing of Krishna consciousness. It's not just about us. When there are so many instructions, even this instruction, so many different places where there is focus on not just taking Krishna consciousness into our own life, but to giving it to others also. Because giving is part of taking of Krishna consciousness. Right? So, we'll read the purport as I said, but when we read these purports, we will understand so much better of what Srila Prabhupada's expertise are. You talk it about each purport being an A in itself, it having its own opening, closing, everything happening right here. So in this case, because there is a concept about regulation of different aspects, controlling of different aspects, there are 6 aspects talked over here. Srila Prabhupada in the purport would start about first setting up the most important fundamental principle. He's saying, why is, so basically he's trying to establish the fact that, why is it intelligent for you to do control? And why not having control but then trying to bear and counteract the concept of not having control is foolishness. That is most important, is to first establish why is it intelligent for us to be having control in the first place, right? So once that has been established, then Srila Prabhupada talks about what is the intelligent way to control. Then he will introduce us to the 6 different aspects that is in verse as what each of these control actually mean. And then we will deep dive into giving us the purport of explaining with categorizations of in fully understanding what these controls practically implementation of that would mean for us, and then we will conclude. So we will see that as we go along. We will start from one side. Do you have, who does not have a book? You can do it both, or if there are some copies, let's everybody have a copy so that we can talk.
You should be having one more here. We had 3. Should I bring from the book room?
For now, let's open it on the phone, or you can read from the screen if you want. Let's start with the book. Let's start with the first paragraph, the purpose.
Srimad Bhagavatam 6.1.9 through 10. Parikshit Maharaj placed a number of intelligent questions before Shukadeva Goswami. One of these questions was, why do people undergo atonement if they cannot control their senses? For instance, a thief may know perfectly well that he may be arrested for his stealing. I actually even see another thief arrested by the police. Yet he continues to steal. Experiences gathered by hearing and seeing. One who is less intelligent gathers experience by seeing, and one who is more intelligent gathers experience by hearing. When an intelligent person hears from the law books and shastras or scriptures that stealing is not good, and hears that a thief is punished when arrested, he refrains from theft. A less intelligent person may first have to be arrested and punished for stealing to learn to stop stealing. However, a rascal and foolish man may have experience of both hearing and seeing, and may even be punished, but still he continues to steal. Even if such a person atones and is punished by the government, he will commit theft as soon as he comes out of jail. If punishment in jail is considered atonement, what is the benefit of such atonement?
Let's read it. So see how Srila Prabhupada directly goes into the most important aspect. So why is Srila Prabhupada starting like that? Because that's our nature. We are always avoid doing the right thing or making the effort in the right place, but then later on trying to counteract the consequences of not doing it the right? So we always have an option to plan better, execute better, right? This is in a general sense, not just right? We always have the time to say, okay, I have exams coming, I need to study up front, do it nice and slow, steady, easily. Or, I have some deliverables at work, let's work towards slowly, steadily. There's so many different things for which you can make sure you're doing the right beforehand. So that what needs to be done is done correctly, and then you don't have to bear the consequences of it. So Srila Prabhupada starts with this opening question, which is very important, is what's the whole point if all we are trying to do is trying to catch up? That's a phrase that we would use in the industry a lot, saying all you're doing is always bad decisions, and now you're into a mess situation, and all you're trying to do is just clean up. So in this context, what Srila Prabhupada is focusing on is saying what's the whole point of going through the atonement processes if we do not do any effort to try and rectify things at the start of it for which we are having to do. Right? What's the point of going up and to all these holy places, taking baths in all the holy rivers and doing all of those things and taking the advantage of them helping us clean our sinful activities and not working on stopping the sinful activities? That's a very important question to be asked. Where Srila Prabhupada is now talking about that level of intelligence. An intelligent will be the one who would plan ahead. And he said, I'm going to a particular place, let me just read out very well about the city that I'm going to visit, how am I going from the airport to the place that I have to, what is the fare going to be, do they accept us, do they not, do a little bit of planning. The same way, an intelligent person would be the one who before executing anything would try and understand the law. So if we have a human form of life, for us to read and understand what are the laws corresponding to a human form of life, understanding that maybe the Shastras is the most intelligent. But let's say, for example, you're at that level, and then the next level of intelligent person would at least keep ears and eyes open for information coming in about people suffering and facing the consequences because of not following the rules. Without even getting into the situation where they are not following the rules, at least from others' experience they would start learning it. That's the next level of intelligence. But if you're not even intelligent enough to understand by looking at news flashes and all that such and such person was caught by robbing and now they're behind bars for X amount, and you're still not using your intelligence, then the next level of intelligent person will put the hand into the fire, get burned, and then realize I should not be doing that and stop doing it. Even that would be called a level of intelligence. But then Srila Prabhupada at the end says a rascal is a person who even despite doing that, despite having faced the consequences, will keep doing that again and again. Is that familiar? Right? Srila Prabhupada will talk about that, and let's just read to Prabhupada. Then he will talk more about this.
He compared atonement to an elephant's bathing. The elephant will take a very nice bath in the river, but as soon as it comes out on the land, it goes all over its body. What then is the value of its bathing? Similarly, many spiritual practitioners chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra and at the same time commit many fraudulent things. thinking that their chanting will counter their offenses. Of the 10 types of offenses one cannot commit while chanting the holy name of the Lord, this offense is called Namno Balad Yashi Papa Buddhi, committing sinful activities on the strength of the chanting the Krishna Mahamantra. Similarly, certain Christians go to the church to confess their sins, thinking that confessing their sins before a priest and performing some penance will relieve them from the results of their weekly sins. As soon as Saturday is over, Sunday comes, they again begin their sinful activities, expecting to be forgiven the next Saturday. This kind of prayashchitta or atonement is condemned by Parikshit Maharaj, the most intelligent king of time. Sukdev Goswami, equally intelligent as befitting the spirit master of Maharaj Parikshit, answered the king and confirmed that his statement concerning atonement was correct. A sinful activity cannot be counteracted by a pious activity. Thus, prayashchitta or atonement is the awakening of our dormant resources.
Thank you. So, interesting, right? We look into our own lives. Let's do a self-reflection for a few minutes, right? And then we can kind of go expanding to see what other people in general do. There's so many different methods that the scriptures have mentioned, or we have manufactured ourselves with the thought of saying, it's okay if I do something wrong, let me do it to counteract it. Or doing this will just clean it. You know? Going to holy places, we took that as an example. Srila Prabhupada is taking the example of chanting Hare Krishna mantra and commenting on the fact that it is a nama aparad, that one is chanting and on the strength of the chanting, they are saying all sins will go away, which does. And so it is okay for me to continue doing so. Right? The problem is, people think, in general, and even I have been thinking it for a long time, that the good actions, the pious actions, the generous actions that we are performing are all positives. And anything that we are doing wrong are negatives. So plus 10, minus 10, 0, I'm good. But that's not the definition, right? There's so many places where it has been confirmed the fact there are so many different leelas which confirm the same thing again. It's not like you do one bad and you're equated out and it's gone. Does anybody know the process of netting in business terms? No? It's like a financial term. I owe you $10, you owe me $10. We say instead of exchanging money twice, we'll net it out and say the net cash flow is 0. Or to give you 20, you need to give me 10. Instead of having 2 cash flows, I'll just give you $10. That's called netting. So there is no netting of karmas. There's no saying you need to give me some good karmas and I need to pay out for my bad karmas. Let's net it out and equate it out to 0. That's not how it works. We have to get the results of both the good and the bad. The good, we will get something which is enjoyable, favorable, as it might seem to be, because we were talking during the Bhagavad Gita class also that goodness is nothing but an illusion of goodness. And similarly, all the bads is something which will put us into so much of a troublesome situation, which we would be not having good taste for. Okay? But each of them has to be experienced because 2 karmas has been done, 2 karmic reactions will be doing it. It is not that one cancels each other. Right? So, in that process, then what is the point of all this atonement? What are we trying to do as part of the atonement? Because what you have done as a karma is not going away. So, what is this process of atonement? You are not nullifying it. So, what are we trying to do? Whatever bad we have done, we will anyways be getting karmic reaction for it. So there is practically no atonement. If there is any prashchitta process that the scriptures mentions, an atonement process that the scriptures mention, is only for you are trying to come to a particular standard. And while you are training yourself to come slowly, you will make mistakes, you will have fall downs. And for that you feel sorry, saying, despite knowing it, I am so sorry for it. Only that is practically an atonement. Only if it is leading you slowly, atonement is leading to your cleanliness and helping you grow up. Now let's take an example of an atonement process that Shila Prabhupada mentions. Now, we have Ekadashi fasting. What if you accidentally by mistake break Ekadashi fasting? You know this, what's the process Shila Prabhupada says? Fasting for next day, yes. Fast for 2 days. Right? That is what Srila Prabhupada says. Now, so, doing Ekadashi fasting for a while, one day morning I get up and I'm in some thought trails and I forget it's Ekadashi and I start having my breakfast. Mistakes like this can happen because we are forgetful conditioned souls. Not that I intended not to have Ekadashi fasting, but then I did go in the process of doing 2 days Ekadashi. That day and next 2 days, basically becomes 3 days. Right? So, this is only because mistakes can happen. But that does not mean, today is this amazing day, and it's Ekadashi. Let me go and have fun body. I'll do fasting 2 days, no worries. That's not it. Right? So, because we are still at a conditioned state where we will make things will go wrong despite our all attempts. Only for that purpose atonement as a process happens. So let's come back to the point of chanting for a second. Okay? If we said that doing anything wrong or breaking the principles while chanting is an amra, so if you are breaking principles or you end up breaking principles, does that mean we stop chanting? Because what we are doing is we have to consciously make every effort in order to try and stop making mistakes. Every day come in front of it is beg for that capability from your heart to say, please help me overcome these bad habits, these anarthas. Because I am not able to do it myself. Keep begging, and keep chanting, we will come to a point of that, of not breaking those up. Right? For some it might be a day, some it might be a year, some it might be a decade, for some it might be a lifetime. But it will happen because the process works. Right? So that is real atonement has to be done. Any other trying to counteract things by saying, it's okay, I'm going to sprinkle some Ganga Jal on myself or chant 2 rounds, 6 flights, fine. That's what is a noun. That is what is meat and dairy. Any questions or comments or anybody wants to share? No? Alright. Let's go to the next paragraph.
Real atonement involves coming to real knowledge, and for this there is standard process. When one follows a regulated hygienic process, he does not fall sick. A human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive original knowledge. Such a methodological life is described as tapasya. One can be gradually elevated to the standard of real knowledge or Krishna consciousness by practicing austerity and celibacy, brahmacharya, by controlling the mind, by controlling the senses, by giving up one's possessions in charity, by being outwardly truthful, keeping clean, by practicing yoga asanas. However, if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all practices of pure for controlling the mind by the mystic yoga process simply by following the regulated illicit sex, meeting, intoxication and gambling. And by engaging in the service of the Supreme under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, this easy process is being recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami.
So this is what Srila Rupa is talking about, what we just discussed, right? The tapasya process is basically under the guidance of a spiritual master, based on their instructions, taking up the process of what needs to be done as a sacrifice of this. These are things that has to be controlled and these are not things that have to be controlled. For example, there are people who would talk about taking monover, not speaking at all. If that is not something that a bona fide spiritual master says as being a process of self-control, then that is not true atonement. That is not the true process. True process is where we are engaging ourselves completely in following the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, which we have received very carefully as following of the four regulated principles: performing practical devotional service and chanting and all of those aspects. Right? So that is what is the true atonement for us. That is how we slowly and gradually cleanse ourselves and come to the point of gradual peace. So now, this is where Srila Prabhupada has set up the foundation for us. What is not atonement? What is atonement? What is that is self-revelation that is needed, and why is it needed in the actual sense? What is intelligence? What is not intelligence? So now let's go into the 6 different aspects that the verse talks about, and one understand what each of the control that the verse talks about means. Let's go into it.
First one must control his speaking. Speaking power, sorry. Every one of us has the power of speech. As soon as we get an opportunity, we begin to speak. If we do not speak about Krishna consciousness, we speak all sort of nonsense. A dog in the field speaks by talking, and similarly, everyone who has a tongue wants to speak, even if all he has to say is nonsense. The talking of the dog, however, simply invites the snake, "Please come here and eat me." Nevertheless, although it is inviting death, the dog goes on talking. The talking of materialistic men and impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers may be compared to talking of frogs. They are always speaking nonsense and thus inviting death to catch them. Controlling speech, however, does not mean self-imposed silence, the external loss of mouth, as Mayavadi philosophers think. Silence may appear helpful for some time, but ultimately it proves a failure. The meaning of controlled speech conveyed by Srila Rupa Goswami advocates the positive process of Krishna Gatha, engaging the speaking process in glorifying Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. The tongue can thus glorify the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Lord. The feature of Krishna Gatha is always beyond the clutches of death. This is significance of controlling the urge to speak.
Thank you. So yeah, the first one is, let's go back to the verse. What was the first verse? Vacho Vegam. Right? Now there's something very interesting. For those who are from have native languages like Hindi or something similar, would understand the term Vega. It's not just saying anything in general, the tendency to speak or something. The urge. Vega means there's a huge force coming in. When we are talking about the flow of a river, that is when we use terms such as vague, because it is very difficult to stop or control or channelize them in a particular way. So Vacho Vegam is that urge to speak. And very beautifully, Prabhupada takes this example of cloaking of a toad. So why is he taking an example? Is because there is, as he said, everybody has a tendency to all the others speak. Even animals, for that matter, keep in their own sense saying, making sounds which is in their own speaking. Nobody is able to control the urge to speak. They are so much uncontrolled that they want to speak. Now, in this example, Srila Prabhupada is talking about what is wrong with that. What is wrong with that is we are unnecessarily speaking, we are speaking nonsense. And without realizing, we actually invite death. What is a deep meaning here? In this case of the toad, right? It's supposed to be silent and its location is not known. They have mechanisms to camouflage and defend themselves. But by unnecessarily croaking and making all those sounds for nonsense reasons, they end up attracting the snake and revealing its position, and death comes. Is that applicable for us? If we are talking on the phone, does snake come in and somebody eats us on the bus and something happens? Not necessarily in the direct sense of death. But what it means is that because of all this nonsense talking and not talking about Krishna consciousness, people is minded into the modes of material nature and hence caught in this cell of birth, old age, disease, and death. In that way, this nonsense speaking of us, this tendency to unnecessarily speak about nonsense, mundane topics is inviting death in the sense that we have kept ourselves in the cycle of birth and death, and we are inviting death again and again and again. That is why this example, these analogies that Srila Prabhupada has given is so intelligent, where a very simple concept of a toad croaking and inviting snake to eat it can be equated very amazingly into our own context. where if we are talking about nonsense, we keep ourselves engaged into the cycle of birth and death and invite death in that sense. Right? So, we said, okay, I'm not going to be speaking, and we were just saying about self-imposed silence or the external process of mana, the Mayavadis would do, is also being condemned over here because that does not help. Can we actually be quiet for a while? So here's what happened to me. I was in the conference last week. Office people, they do this fancy stuff once a year. We were all in London, and they have this amazing theatre in London somewhere. Everybody pin drop silence, and they're making some presentations. What happens to me? I'm speaking for so long. This is like an 8 hours a day with all these sessions. Suddenly I start talking. And then you get conscious in this whole silence, pin drop silence. Somebody's doing a presentation to me, and you're there's my top somewhere. We can't be quiet because you're so used to it. Right? So, how is that we can come to the process of completing that? It's not possible. So, all these are external processes, right? By saying that I'm going to keep away from talking is not possible because we have been given speech. We have got the tendency to speak, so we will speak. But what do we speak about is not can control. So Srila Prabhupada, that's why he's saying the ultimate idea about doing Krishna Katha is the right engagement of our ability to speak. Because that is why we've been given the right speech. Right? Any questions on this one? Any comments or any realization? Yes, sir.
I think there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna also explains how to speak properly.
Right.
It just reminded me of that because discussion around it.
Yeah, so the entire thing, its practical implementation, Bhagavad Gita gives very beautiful in so many different ways. It also talks about the fact that how these senses, when engaged with sense objects, is the cause of our suffering. Right? Want to say something more?
Prabhu, I had this thing that I asked this question to devotees too, but I was never satisfied with the answer. It says the picture of Krishna Katha is beyond the clutches of death.
Yes.
So,
When there is a preacher of Krishna Katha, just think about it backwards, okay? Just keep taking that up. If you want to do Krishna Katha, you need to be aware of Krishna. You need to have Krishna yourself. When you have Krishna yourself with you, then the death can touch you. Right? So we give Krishna to anybody and we don't have Krishna ourselves to whatever extent it might be. And if we have even the slightest bit of Krishna in our life, then death cannot touch us. What does it mean that death cannot touch us? They are not going to die? Death as a process means giving up this material body and taking up another material body. And suffering as a process of that, where the process involves pain equivalent to that of 1,000 scorpions biting us. That process of being dragged out of this body, taken away by Yamadutas and dragged to Yamaloka, and then sitting over there and listening to everything that you have done and facing the consequences of that and going to another body. That is one who is involved into speaking about Krishna does not go through that process. Even if they give up a material body, and even if the process of Krishna consciousness, they are taking another material body, it's still not the same process. They still, technically, the difference is the devotee will be meeting Vishnu Dutas, who would then help them out to their journey of either going to Vaikuntha, if they're ready for it, or taking them somewhere else to complete the process of Krishna consciousness. It's not the same full process that the Yamadutas take you through. Right? So in that sense, a Krishna Katha speaker is always, a preacher is always out of the clutches of Yamadutas. Does that help?
yes, Prabhu.
Right. Anybody else? Okay, and let's continue to the next paragraph. We will talk about the next is the urge of mind, Manoveta.
The restlessness of fickleness of the mind, Manoveda, is controlled. One can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The Chaitanya Charitamrita 152.31 says, कृष्ण तुर्या सममया Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya is just like darkness. If the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Simply, if Krishna is present in the mind, there is no possibility of the minds being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve him best, one's mind will naturally be controlled.
That's all. Thank you. So again, it's very interesting, right? So we, in so many different ways, this conversation would come up in so many different forums in mind control. If you've controlled your mind, if you've conquered over your mind, you've conquered over everything, so on and so on. How can mind be controlled? Now, from the Bhagavad Gita we know, right? Krishna clearly said, for me to control wind is easier than to control mind. So he is saying that, what position do we have with respect to controlling of mind? So this artificial, there are so many meditation processes, unfortunately I've been to those places, sitting down silently, imagine yourself on this chair, expand your consciousness, imagine yourself to be in this room, in Toronto, so on and so forth, think, now don't think. Even if I'm thinking that I'm not thinking, that's also thinking. So can I actually not think? The fact, again, coming to the same point, when I've been given this intelligence, this capability to do tarka, to argue, justify, and think, and logically understand things, then why would we not think? It's not possible for us to keep our minds from thinking at all. Right? So, if we are artificially trying to stop any of these urges, these vegas, that is not possible, that will be repeated again and again. So, what's the process? The process is what has been quoted over here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, very interesting. If you are ever going out for Sankirtan, if you want to have this conversation, you would love to do this. What is the scientific definition of vacuum? What is vacuum? Absence of air. The absence of air, absence of anything is vacuum. What is darkness as definition? Absence of light. So, ignorance is similarly an absence of knowledge or wisdom. Right? So, it's very clearly being said over here that no matter what you keep trying and doing, if you are in a dark room, till when you don't bring in a source of light, the darkness will not go away. You can keep doing whatever you want to. Okay. Only getting in a source of light into a dark room will only be the thing that can kill darkness. Now, if I get a small matchstick, it illuminates the room to a certain extent. If I get a candle, it illuminates even further. If I'm getting one of those fancy, amazing LED flashlights, it illuminates it even further. But if I get some light into that room, is there any chance of darkness to exist? Like even with the flashlight, you're pointing it in one direction, there is light here, but there is darkness behind. Each of these smaller source of light source will cause illumination, but will still have some darkness somewhere. So, but when we get Krishna, who's equated to a sun, then there is no chance of there being darkness of ignorance that can exist. So if we are struggling with our mind control, saying I'm trying to chant, I'm not able to focus my mind, if I'm trying to do this, I'm not able to focus my mind, I get agitated, I get distracted, that means we are not having Krishna fully into our life, into our minds. If Krishna is there into our mind fully, that is like sun, there will be no chance of darkness that exists. When it is bright and sunny, there is no darkness. Right? So, the easiest way to controlling of mind is to get Krishna into it, get mind to get engaged into thinking of Krishna. That is like sun, and no other thoughts you can then exist. It will all be transformed. Okay? Any questions before we go to the next? Yes.
So, even if we're chanting, sometimes chanting also some thoughts come in our minds. So, while chanting, we are having Krishna station, right? So, why is that happening?
The process of chanting is so pure that we are, yes, with that we have association of Krishna. But are we chanting and are we actually associating with Krishna? That's the question. When we are chanting and because we are not in that full mode of purely chanting, we are not fully associating with Krishna. So there is this verse which talks about as soon as I chant the name of Krishna, Krishna personally comes and dances on my tongue. Do we see it? Do we associate with that? He is saying, if you chant my names, I will come and personally associate with you. But are we ready to welcome him and say, Krishna, please come sit, I'm going to talk to you? Or he's just one person who enters the room, sits in one corner and says, I came and I promise you're not talking to me. Right? So, again, same thing, right? There are stages. If that is happening, do we stop chanting? We don't. Because we're at least coming into the point of coming to a regulated chanting as a process. And then we can start coming to the point through this process of cleansing our mind of all the other craziness and stop thinking about 50 different things. Reduce that to think about Krishna only. Like, you know how it happens. First, we will think about Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, but after some more come. Then you will start thinking Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, oh, I have to go to the temple also, and I have to finish chanting by then. Then you will start thinking about something. The thoughts start changing over the period of time. What are you thinking about? Right? And then slowly you will just think about Krishna Leela. And then maybe you will think about Krishna's Dhaam. And then maybe all of that will not go away and then you just focus on the name. That is the natural process that everybody has to do as a journey. Right? So, yes, that will happen because we are still at that initial stage. Right? Anybody else before we go to the anger? If nobody's getting let's go to the next paragraph.
Similarly, anger and control. We cannot stop anger altogether, but if we simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or the devotees of the Lord, we control our anger in Krishna's. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry with the miscreant brothers Jaya Madai, who blasphemed and struck Nityananda Prabhu. In his Shiksha Shaka, Lord Chaitanya wrote, Rena api sunichena, taro api savisnuna. One should be humbler than the grass and more tolerant than the tree. One may then ask why the Lord exhibited his anger. The point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insults to one's own self, but when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offenders. Growth, anger cannot be stopped, but it can be applied rightly. It was in anger that Hanuman set fire to Lanka, but he is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Lord Ramchandra. This means that he utilized his anger the right way. Arjun serves as another example. He was not willing to fight, but Krishna incited his anger. You must fight. To fight without anger is not simple. Anger is controlled. However, when utilized in the service of the Lord.
Okay. So anger is another very interesting thing, right? The concept of anger will always exist. Because that's what Krishna has given us. In that sense, it's a reflection of what happens in the spiritual world also extend. So what we can control is what do we get angry about. This point that I've highlighted is very powerful. It says the point is that one should be ready to tolerate all insult to one's own self. That is where Trinadi Apisunichena comes in. But when Krishna or his pure devotee is blasphemed, a genuine devotee becomes angry and acts like fire against the offender. What do we get angry about becomes important. We cannot remove anger, but we remove the reason because of which we are getting angry. Again, the process of Krishna consciousness is what redirects all our aspects into the right direction so that it's used properly. Right? Good examples over here is given about Hanuman. He did get angry. Arjuna, anger was being what's the word? Incited for him. Like he's being made angry. With all of these reasons also, like anger can be very well if it needs to be used. Right? Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did with him. All of these anger, like even there are examples of nobody also becoming angry. But with all of these examples, we are just seeing it's done overall betterment. And that overall betterment is understood only if we understand Krishna consciousness. Because if we say, oh, I'm like a parent might holding a child saying, do your work and be angry at them, that anger is for a greater cause. So that cause is material education. But if you're angry for being, which is, your anger is having somebody become more Krishna conscious or executing of services of Krishna in a better manner, that is the best way of executing it. A guru also gets angry with his disciples, would externally only show it. There are so many examples in which I can, I've seen that happening. I have faced it myself also. But the anger that a guru has is just external manifestation to teach us. Then not that it's impacting them. Just turn it on. Any question on anger? Before we go to the next one, which is the origin of tongue. Yes.
Prabhu, if we see some devotee doing something bad, harming another devotee, so what is our role? We get angry on them, or we let put that?
Okay. So the person who speaks, if they are equal or lower in terms of Krishna consciousness, we know Kanishka, Vikara, then you stop them. Otherwise, you close your ear and run away. When we get engaged into doing an offense against a Vaishnava, that's a Vaishnava aparadh. But if there is Vaishnava aparadh happening and we don't do anything about it, that's also Vaishnava aparadh. Right? So if there is a Vaishnava who's blaspheming, so you have to understand things from a different perspective. I might be sitting over here and saying something about Prabhu, he did not do this correctly. But that could be with the intention that not to say that he is wrong, but with the intention to tell you don't do wrong like that. Don't take wrong example. So we have to with a very clear mind, understand what is happening before we come to a point of concluding what is happening. But if I am doing with the intention of blaspheming him or saying he's don't associate with this, then we have to see, okay, I either can counter and say, no, what is wrong if I am authorized to do that and if I have enough potential to do that, then I will stop the person from speaking. Or otherwise I just walk away, say, no, it's okay. I'm just busy, I just go. Right? We have to be very intelligent in execution. Narad Muni also gives this example, it's very beautiful. He has the snake as a disciple and then the snake said non-violence, non-violence, non-violence. And everybody comes to understand that, oh, he's become a devotee, he's become non-violent. The kids come and start throwing stones at him. And he's all battered. And Narad Muni, what happened to you? He said, you told me no violence, kids know I want you to want me, and I'm all blooded right now. And Narad Muni said, yeah, I told you not to attack anybody, but I did not tell you to raise your fangs and scare people. Right? So intelligence is needed in execution of all this. We are intelligent beings, we have been given that intelligence. We are not fanatics, remember that. We are not fanatic by saying this is the rule. We need to understand the context in which the rule needs to be implemented and how that has to be executed. That's why we read the scriptures, we discuss it. These forums are for that reason, so that we fully understand things in the right context. Okay? Fantastic. Let's go to the next one.
Prabhu,
Yes. Yes.
So when Lord Nrsimha appeared, he was very ferocious and he was just going to kill Hiranyakashipu. But we also saw that even Prahlad Maharaj got scared of him, and even when demigods came to him, they were all scared of coming in front of him. So is it okay or?
Okay. So one fact correction first. Yes, when Lord Nrsimha Dev came, he was ferocious. Ugra Nrsimha. Yes, all of the demigods, including Lord Brahma, were afraid to approach him. Prahlad was not. That's very clearly mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj was the one who was not afraid, and hence Lord Brahma told him to step forward and try and pass it. So, what are we supposed to be afraid about? That we have to think of. Okay, am I afraid about committing offences? Am I afraid about not doing my services properly? That's a good fear. We need to have that. If that fear is something which is stopping me from doing my service, that's a wrong fear. Right? Till when all of anything, the basic principle, the thumb rule is if there is something which is helping you in progressing in Krishna consciousness, it is good. If it is stopping you in the illusion of Krishna consciousness, it is bad. So if any of the fears that you have, if it is helping you to keep yourself in the path, if it is as a guardrail to not let you deviate and go away somewhere else, it is good. But if it is the same, not being guardrails on the side, but like a barricade in front of you and not letting you progress, that's bad. So what are we afraid of? Let's say, for example, I'm not going to chant nicely. I'm not going to chant. That's a barricade. Well, I'm not able to chant again today. I did not do my chanting very well. Next time I should do better. If I don't do it better, then I'll come to a point where I'll lose the taste of chanting. That's barricade. Right? So you have to think, where is this fear there? Is it in front or on the sides? Right? And based on that, you have to see if you can eliminate it or actually utilize it. Okay? So we have 5 more minutes. We can do one more paragraph, but any other questions before we move on? Make sure that we are all comfortable. Okay? Right. You're on.
As for the urges of tongue, we all experience that the tongue wants to eat palatable dishes. Generally, we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but should control the tongue by supplying prasada. The devotee's attitude is that he will eat only when Krishna gives him prasada. That is the way to control the urge of the tongue. One should take bath at scheduled times and should not eat in restaurants or sweet shops simply to satisfy the whims of the or belly. If we stick to the principle of taking only prasad, urges of the belly and tongue can be controlled.
Okay. So, simple principle, eat prasadam. Let me pose this as a question to everybody. Why? Not just from the perspective of karmic aspect, why is it important to watch what we are eating? Why is that controlling it? Yes, sir.
It can affect our consciousness. It can affect the other, like some certain foods can incite anger, incite trust,
Right.
other emotion. So we should be very careful with what we eat.
Fantastic, yes. So it impacts consciousness. Food is the greatest carrier of consciousness. What we eat impacts us always. It is pretty scientific. There are certain food that we are going to eat which we feel bloated. There are other foods that we feel after which we feel relaxed. There are certain food that we eat after which we feel peaceful. And the consciousness of food is very strong. Who's cooking? Where is it cooked? Etc. etc. Everything matters. Now that is why when we are offering it to Krishna, all of these chain of the supply chain with respect to the food of the consciousness that is being carried around, that chain is broken. And what you're getting is only consciousness that Krishna is giving you, which is Krishna consciousness. So practically speaking, again there are levels that we will go through, right? The highest standard and the principle which you target for always eat what has been offered to Krishna, but what is, let's step back, we offer to Krishna, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam, fine, ingredients we have talked about. But can anybody cook from various ingredients and offer it to Krishna and Krishna will accept? No, it has to be cooked with love and devotion. So who is the one who can cook with love and devotion? A devotee can be. So all these becomes checkpoints for us to see what is edible and what is not from our perspective. If it is being cooked with right consciousness and with love and devotion, only then it can be offered to Krishna, and if Krishna has accepted it, and it is prasad, only then can be accepted. That is the principle that you have to always understand and target for. Now, depending on time, place and circumstances, see things. Like it's very clearly being mentioned over here, do not eat at restaurants. Govinda's is also a restaurant. Right? So, do we eat? Do we not eat?
Eat.
Why?
Because it's prasada.
Prasad. So now, again, not getting into the, not wanting to start any controversy, but there are, again, it's because of how every temple has constraints. Like in amazing temple in Toronto, it's devotees who cook, it's devotees who offer. That's prasad. But then there could be temples where they don't have that many devotee resources available to be able to manage it, and it's people in general like any other restaurant or coming and cooking. But it is being offered to Krishna. So now, we have to be very with what is the level of standards we are able to maintain. Like there are amazing devotees who will cook and eat only things cooked by Brahmanas, not even first initiates. We have to gradually increase our standards and come to the point where we are eating only things which has been cooked by devotees with love and devotion and offered, and not just cooked by anybody and offered to Krishna. Like we can very easily go and buy from a bakery which is pure very and offer it to Krishna and eat it. Even that is prasad in one sense. But Krishna does not accept anything that is not with love and devotion. So technically, by including in perspective that market cake is offered to Krishna, but it can accept, that becomes the question. Because he's not hungry. All he needs is devotion. That was the missing ingredient. Right? So again, everybody needs to understand their own levels and has to, most importantly, understand the level that Srila Prabhupada has given us and has to be achieved. That should be the goal post. That is where we have to get achieved. Right? So, yeah, that should clarify. Now, what is the interesting thing that has been mentioned over here is the fact that, we just mentioned, it will come afterwards, but everything is connected to each other. We let go of one regulation, it impacts other things also. Let's just do one quick paragraph and then we can next week, because we would have covered the introduction of all things. And so we will not get a chance to read. But next time we will be more than that.
In a similar manner, the urges of the genital, the sex impulse, can be controlled when not used unnecessarily. The genital should be used to beget a Krishna conscious child. Otherwise, they should not be used. The Krishna consciousness movement encourages marriage not for the satisfaction of the genitals, but for the begetting of Krishna conscious children. As soon as the children are little grown up, they are sent to a Gurukula school in Dallas, Texas, where they are trying to become fully Krishna conscious devotees. Many such Krishna conscious children are required, and one who is capable of bringing forth Krishna conscious offspring is allowed to utilize his genitals.
Thank you. So the genitals needs to be controlled. That is the most difficult one that Srila Prabhupada talks about. But then he will talk in the rest of the purport of how we think of one place as being a problem area, but not understand what is the cause of the problem is somewhere else. We're looking at the problem and not the cause of the problem, right? So genitals, the way it's supposed to be used, is only for having Krishna conscious children. Multiple stages. Use of genitals only for having children is also not the same. Srila Prabhupada is not saying the use of genitals for having children. Srila Prabhupada is saying the use of genitals for having Krishna conscious children. Why is that important? Apart from his control and everything, why is that also important? It is important because if we are, as human bodies, when we reproduce, there are souls which are getting human. If we are not Krishna conscious ourselves, and if we are not doing things enough to help these offsprings be Krishna conscious, then we have done violence against some living entities. We have given them human form of life, but not help them or enable them to utilize that human form of life. We have wasted them form of life, which is an act of violence. So that is why it is important that once we are having kids, we are supposed to be making sure that they are engaged in practice of Krishna consciousness. They are elevating themselves to a higher level of consciousness than that what they had in the previous world. With that objective only should we be having children. The only reason why a devotee should agree to have kids is that I need to have some living entities become Krishna conscious. Otherwise not. That is why use of genitals only to have Krishna consciousness. And if we have kids Okay? We are ourselves Krishna conscious, they are not, then we have done an act of violence against them. They wasted their chance of human life. They went through the evolution stages and got the human birth, but we have not enabled that human birth. That's wrong. Right? So in that sense, the use of generals needs to be to make sure that we are only doing it for that purpose. Otherwise, there is no other need for it. Any questions? Yes.
Suppose we create a child, like we are Krishna, we create a child, but child for some or the other reason will not take up Krishna consciousness. So is it our fault that we have done the violence, or is it the child's fault that?
Let's break it down. Okay? There's a process that Srila Prabhupada has given us to have Krishna consciousness, to make sure that your kids are going to be Krishna conscious. And that starts way before the birth of the child also. Supposed to be chanting 50 rounds, both the husband and the wife, and only then plan to have it. Right? So all of those things make sure that the right consciousness is there in the jiva when they're coming up into the womb. And hence, they will most probably take up the process of Krishna consciousness. But if you have done everything as per the instructions of your guru, doing the proper Garbhodana sanskars, doing the proper aspect of leading by example yourself, doing the right of teaching and guiding them correctly from it, and even with all of those efforts also, if they do not come to the right path, then you're not at fault. If you follow the instructions. The question is, did we do everything correctly or not? That is right. You lying down like easily on the bed, I don't know this and this, forget it. I mean, giving the example to the kid that it's okay. So that's why it is very important to make sure that we have come to a certain level and hence taken permission from Guru before we plan for it. Because the Guru is saying, okay, I think you will be able to do it. You have that level of consciousness at least to be able to guide the child into the right direction. So hence you can. Otherwise, the Guru might say, yes,
I've heard from a devotee that whenever someone's born, they're indebted to so many people, the parents, forefathers. And one of the reasons why such should have children is because to pay off that debt.
oh, very good. So that those are rin. The debt in Sanskrit is called rin. So that's Pitar rin. The debt to the ancestors. I am given form of body because of one thing. But understand, when we are Krishna conscious, when we have completely surrendered to Krishna, we're subjected to no debt. We're not subjected to Pitragrin, we're not subjected to Rishi, we're not subject to any of that. But it is out of compassion that a devotee might take up the process and saying, I'm going to have Krishna consciousness to help you in it. That's a different story. But they are not indebted anymore if you're doing everything for Krishna and completely surrendered to him. Apply to a devotee. But otherwise it doesn't apply. Yeah. Any other question? Last one we can take it. Yes.
It's from the previous eating prashad. No, so you said so you're saying that the consciousness of what with which the food is prepared that matters a lot. And I don't know if I misheard, but you said that suppose something is incorrectly cooked but we want Krishna, the consciousness becomes confused by Krishna, and so that
What I'm saying is, we say that we have to have Krishna Prasad only, which means we have to offer it to Krishna. What we have to understand and realize is Krishna is not Prasadam machine. It's not a sanitizing, where we just put in everything, gets sanitized and it comes out. Right? So it's not like we can pick up anything and everything and offer it to Krishna. We have to have what has been offered to Krishna, but we should also know what can be offered to Krishna. Right? Once we have offered to Krishna what can be offered to him, then that is prasadam, and then that is not subject to any of the chain that has gone into wild cooking. There could be a very nice, amazing devotee who at time of cooking might not be fully in Krishna consciousness at that moment, because that is possible. But then he's still cooking with the consciousness that I'm cooking it for Krishna. Krishna will accept. So any such tiny bit of consciousness that might be there is then happening. But if you're, as I said, getting in a huge staff from somewhere to cook for you, and then you're thinking, I'm going to offer it if it's all good, because it's gone through that purificatory process, but it might not have accepted it. You think, what's this, man? It's not been cooked with love and devotion. I'm not accepting. That is possible. So even if you're offering it to Krishna, the question is, did Krishna accept it or not? Right? Right? Yes.
Just the last one on the same
No,
point. Like, my parents are not Krishna conscious, so do I not eat the food that I make?
So that's where we have to be very intelligent. Right? At the initial stages, they might be cooking in, but if they are cooking in with the right ingredients, and you offer it to Krishna lovingly, and say, Krishna, I know they're not there yet, but please humbly accept it. Your devotion is coming. And Krishna might accept it. Right? It's not in my control. Please, Krishna, accept it so that I can have only your prasad as per your instructions. I'm doing the best that is possible for me. Help me be Krishna so that I can make them Krishna conscious. If that is your consciousness, by that I might just say, fine. Right? It all depends. Because that's why we see we're not fanatic going by a particular rule by itself. We have to be careful. There was one example, I think it's in Prabhupada Lila Brother, where Srila Prabhupada and all his disciples were invited to a particular place, and this person had a lot of love and surrender and devotion for all of them, but he was onions. It's clearly visible. And Srila Prabhupada was like, how to pick it up and take it in his mouth, and the devotee said, Prabhupada, onions, onions. Quite, ate it. He ate it. And he made others also eat. But he clearly mentioned afterwards saying, this is not an exception that you can take. I allowed it, so. And I allowed him to see the consciousness by which he was cooking. Right? So we have, so Krishna also does. Right? Krishna might accept things which is really cannot be offered. Like I'll give an example, right? I was in 4 days. Where do I get Krishna from? I'm in a hotel room with nothing. And morning to evening, the company has created all of these schedules that, I cannot even go to the temple. I'm cooking in the hotel. Am I following the full standards that is needed for bhoga cooking? That cleanliness, that separation, that freshness of ingredients, I'm not. I'm actually, the only source of water I have is the wash basin, the washroom, when I'm going and rinsing utensils. Is that allowed? Do that in the kitchen here? No. But now understand from a principle perspective. Because of that, I cannot cook something that can be very nicely offered to Krishna. What do I do? Stay hungry for 4 days? I cannot function in that perspective. What do I do? Then eat any nonsense that is being done? Cooked by them? No. So, that is the best option available. So you pray, Krishna, please, I'm so sorry. I know this is not the standard. Given the circumstances, this is the best I can do. Please accept it. And he might. Right? So we have to be intelligent in that perspective. Okay? Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll continue.